Welcome to Travel Talk with Joy. I'm Joy. I've traveled to all 50 states. I've been to all 7 continents. On most of my adventures, I do it with my husband, who's a full-time wheelchair user. Come meet amazing people who travel through life a little differently as we explore the world of accessible travel. Let's go! Welcome to Travel Talk with Joy. Today we are here with Shane Burcaw, one of the biggest content creators in the disability space who's doing amazing things, and so excited to have him here today. So thank you, Shane, for being on Travel Talk with Joy.
Thank you, Joy, so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. So let's just get right into it and talk first about what is SMA, and tell our audience a little bit about how it affects you and what the disability is.
Yes, so SMA stands for Spinal Muscular Atrophy. It's a neuromuscular condition that I inherited from my parents, even though they do not have the disease themselves. I was born with it, and essentially it causes muscle weakness. That's like the most basic way of explaining it. The proteins that my body needs to build and maintain muscle aren't all there. Um, so I began using a motorized wheelchair when I was 2 years old, literally,
Wow.
which my parents have lots of horror stories teaching a 2-year-old, essentially baby, to operate a piece of heavy machinery. Um, it sounds like a bad idea, but I've been a wheelchair user my entire life, and today, as a 32-year-old, almost forgot how old I am. Uh, I require physical assistance with most activities of daily living. I can operate my wheelchair and use my phone and my laptop. Play video games, all the important stuff. I have some limited hand movement, but I require help, getting in and out of bed and eating and dressing, all those fun things. So that's my life. That's my disability. And I, as I said, been living with it my whole life, and it's just how life is.
So, see, people talk about drugs that help people, like some of the new drugs that have helped people.
Right.
Tell us about your journey with that. If you decided to do them, didn't decide to use them, tell us about that.
Yeah, so that's a very important caveat that I always forget to mention. Uh, the nature of SMA in its natural progression is that it gets worse over time. So my whole life, most of my life, I've lived with the knowledge that as I get older, I would get weaker because I don't have those proteins. My muscles would atrophy and become weaker over time. Um, this used to mean that someone my age at 30, getting up there into 30s and 40s, would begin to deal with more severe or serious breathing issues and other kind of big aspects of being alive. Um, a
Big aspects, breathing. Yeah.
breathing, just the important stuff. Um, a few years ago, well, wow, like I don't even know how many years ago, 5, 6 years ago now, the first ever treatment for SMA was approved by the FDA in what for me was like a completely unexpected event in my life. The idea that there would ever be a treatment uh, was always like a far off kind of hope, but it never felt real. And I didn't follow research very closely. So other people, that are more in tune with all that, probably were not as surprised as I was. But I didn't even know it was in the works. And then um, one day my then girlfriend, now wife, sent me an email that was like, "Hey, they just approved a cure, a treatment for SMA, and essentially it pauses or significantly reduces the progression of SMA. So it's kind of a form of synthetic DNA that makes my body create the protein that it needs, that it didn't previously know how to make. Um, as you can tell, I'm not a neuroscientist, so I don't have no idea what I'm saying, but uh, the treatment and subsequent treatments, because there were a few more that came out after that first one, promised to stop the progression of SMA and kind of ensure that the strength level that I am at now would continue into the future. Um, it was a surreal period of my life. I think when strangers hear that, they assume, oh, so you began right away, right? Like obviously. Um, but at that point, I think I was 26 years old, maybe. And I had gone through years, decades of coming to terms with and accepting the nature of SMA and becoming okay with the fact that I would be weaker in the future, and I didn't know what that would look like. Um, and now there was this thing that was like, well, that might not be true anymore. You might, be as strong as you are now when you're 50. Um, and that was on one hand, incredible thing that I never expected. And on the other hand, like terrifying because you can get your hopes up very easily for something like that. And then there are myriad ways that it either doesn't work or the procedure, which was a spinal injection that I would have to receive every 3 months forever. And it's a real grisly procedure where they stick a needle into my neck, into my spinal column. Uh, it was a lot. It was a lot to consider. There's a fight with insurance because it was exorbitantly expensive. All these factors that made me take some time to think about, do I want to go down this road? I love my life with SMA. I don't feel like I need a treatment to love my life anymore. Um, so it was a lot, and I'm very grateful for my girlfriend, Hannah, now wife, at the time, just like being there to go through that difficult emotional like decision. Um, and I did end up deciding to do it, and I began doing the injections, and then later an oral option was approved. So now I get to take yummy medicine every day instead of get my neck poked every 3 months. Um, but it's good. I feel stronger than ever. I actually gained
Wow.
back some strength. And I just feel consistent and strong. So I'm very grateful for that.
It's amazing to have a medication like out of the blue like that that shows up in your life with the has it completely stopped the progression of like, fine motor function loss, things like that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to speak in absolutes because everyone is different. Everyone has different results. Um, and my strength scores are now consistent, like year over year, and it used to be a slow decline. So
Wow.
I've only been on it for 4 or 5 years, so I don't really say yes, like it's permanently going to be this way forever. But it
Yeah.
seems to be like I'm holding consistent strength. So pretty
That's
cool.
so exciting.
Yeah.
One funny thing that I saw in one of your shorts, it was like you and Hannah were talking about like, well, this is something you do. Well, this is something you do. And one of the things that she said you do is forgets to take life-saving medicine on the regular. Is that true?
It is true. Yeah. Sorry, mom and dad. Yeah, I think like everyone, I'm a adult just trying to figure things out, and forgetting my meditation seems to be one of my faults as a human being. So I have an alarm on my phone. Hannah has an alarm on her phone. It just somehow slips my brain every couple of days. So yeah,
Somehow, somehow. So, I read both of your books, and so I know quite a bit about your life. And
too much
um,
probably.
it's amazing the level that you share in your books. And I think some of the interesting things are really goes into detail about how, people see you and they're like, oh, he uses a wheelchair. But there's so many more like little small details of your life that have been affected by SMA from, having a feeding tube or needing to, have upright support so your head doesn't fall in your lap,
Yeah,
little things like that. And I think that I love the way in your books that you really went into full detail about your disability so people can really understand the disability behind the person. Because I think sometimes people, they just look at someone and they have no idea all the little small details that go into that person's life, you know?
yeah, yeah. Well, thank you for reading my books. First of all, um,
You're welcome.
I I have always felt that the misconceptions and the stigma that exists around disability are a result of people feeling uncomfortable about disability and therefore not learning about it, not experiencing it in a positive way. Um, and so, kind of unintentionally at first, but now more intentionally, I write about and make videos with my wife about life with a disability where I really nothing is held back. Um,
No.
I try to share every tiny detail beyond just like, yeah, I use wheels to move around. That's not super interesting. Um, and so I just want people to, and I do it in a way, or I try to do it in a way um, that makes it funny and approachable so that someone can read a traumatizing story about a feeding tube and come away laughing and feeling like, all right, well, yeah, that's a life experience that I've never personally experienced, but now I understand it and I realize that it's something that human beings may have to go through and it's fine. And I don't need to be, you know, judgmental about it or like weird about it. And because I know of Shane and I know his story about it, and it was fine. Um, so yeah,
There,
that's what I try to do.
there's so many stories of bodily fluids that are shared in the books. I'm like, if there was a table of contents, bodily fluids would definitely be on the top because so many great stories involve bodily fluids, of course. Um,
Yeah,
and
I've had like more than a few stories about emptying my bladder into my pants, and I don't know. It seems to be a theme in my life.
I understand that actually. Uh, so one thing from your first book, you talked about, your first girlfriend and experiences with a girl, and then, comes out that then you meet Hannah in book number two, and who's your wife now.
Uh-huh.
Um, talk a little bit about, for people that don't know, how you and Hannah met.
Yeah. So Hannah and I met in the most unlikely of ways. Um, there was a documentary that was made about me and the nonprofit that I run called Laughing at My Nightmare, and the book that I had just published. This was back in 2014. I was just fresh out of college, um, and that documentary went a little bit viral online, and Hannah was one of the people who saw that documentary. And she was going to college in Minnesota at the time. I was living in Pennsylvania. And so in normal life, there's no way we would have ever met and, fallen in love and got married. Um, but Hannah sent me a little email after watching the documentary and reading my blog that I was writing at the time, just saying, hey, like, saw your story. I think you're funny. We have a lot in common. Here's a little bit about me. Um, hey, she and, she says that she was up late studying that night and was a little bit delirious and really had no idea what she was doing. Um, I think she was smitten over my charm and good looks. No,
Obviously.
um, so I received this email, and it was I got a lot of emails around that time from people reading my work and seeing the documentary, and very often, almost all the time, uh, the emails would praise my ability to smile in the face of such tragedy.
Yeah.
They missed the message of my work, which was that living with a disability is not a tragedy, and that my life is incredible. Um, Hannah's email made no mention of my disability. It was simply about our shared sense of humor and our interests and hobbies. Um, and that was just so refreshing. And she used parentheses in the email in like the hottest way ever. As a writer, I was like, ooh, she knows what she's doing. Um, so I felt this overwhelming need to know more about her. Again, I knew she was 1,000 miles away, living a different life. Um, so I had no like, oh, we're gonna date type feeling.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh, let's like maybe we'll be friends. So I reply, and we began emailing and texting, and then we FaceTime like 2 days later, just to be like, let's say hi. Um, and we ended up FaceTiming for like an hour and a half. It felt
Wow.
like 2 minutes. Um, and I think by the end of that FaceTime, both of us were like, uh-oh, this is like, there's something here that's more than just like random internet friends. And so we fell in love. And Hannah came to visit 2 months later. I assumed that conversation with her parents was horrifying. Hi, mom and dad. I met an older man online. He's only like 3 years older than her. And he lives 1,000 miles away. And I, a college student, am going to meet him. It's at the beginning of a horror
Oh, and
movie.
he uses a wheelchair.
When
Yeah.
he uses a wheelchair. Yeah, no, it's interesting. Hannah's parents, as we got to know each other before Hannah came to visit, and I would FaceTime with them here and there, and it, in previous relationships, meeting the parents was always a disappointment, I'll say. I've had parents of previous partners flat out tell my partner that like dating me was a bad idea, that I would be a burden to them, that I would ruin their life. And that, as you can imagine, puts a damper on the relationship. Uh, Hannah's family they didn't care at all. They wanted to read my books, and they wanted to talk about how they could build a ramp on their house so that if I ever wanted to visit, I could get inside. Um, they didn't care at all about the disability. They were more just like, this is an internet stranger. Are you sure he's real? And then once we got to know each other, it was all fine. But yeah, they weren't worried about the disability, which was a really another of many reasons why I was like, Hannah is the perfect person.
Wow. Um, so my husband uses a wheelchair too, and my
Mhm.
parents were like, "Don't lead him on." Thinking of like this, I shouldn't go down this road unless I'm really
Yeah,
serious about it. And
yeah,
so the idea that her parents were so open to accepting you for who you are,
yep.
that's
It
pretty
was
incredible.
incredible. Um, it's a little bit like I think that should be the norm, you know. It isn't though. It just flat out isn't. Um, Not yet, anyway. But yeah, they've always accepted me with open arms, and her whole extended family, her brothers and their families, um, have always just been. They're just very open-minded people to begin
Mhm.
with. But regarding my disability, they've always just figured out what can we do to make things accessible. How can we adapt our
Yeah.
family traditions to like make sure Shane can do it. Um, it's been great. So I really appreciate how welcoming they've always been.
So obviously Hannah's beautiful, amazing woman, but you've had other girlfriends too. And this is one thing that, so many wheelchairs, they feel like they can't date. Like, what is the Shane magic that is making this happen? Because literally a lot of people, with SMA or spinal cord injury, or they don't date. You have this way that you have found a way with women, Shane. What is the magic?
I don't know if I do anything special. And the reason I say that is that Hannah and I, and I know that you wanted to get to this, not to get ahead of myself, but Hannah and I have a book coming out um, in January of this coming year called Interabled Love Stories. And for that book, we interviewed and profiled 30 other couples where
Wow.
one or both members live with a disability. And to write that book, we put up a submission form online uh, to get people to sign up to be included in the book. And we were hoping for like 10. And in about 12 hours, we had over 600 couples submit wanting to be involved. Just like incredible love stories, all involving disability. Um, that tells me that, I'm not rare. Uh, I totally acknowledge and agree with your sentiment that like disabled people can have difficulties in the dating world, and I'll talk about that. But it also was really like that book process was so eye opening for me. Seeing so many disabled people thriving in relationships, and I think part of it is like a willingness to be vulnerable, both partners. Um, an ability to communicate effectively about your disability, and for the non-disabled partner about your maybe hesitations or worries about dating someone with a disability, or your curiosity. um, all of the couples that we interviewed that were in like these great relationships were so open with each other, and um, some of them like had those early questions about their disability, but they handled it with grace and humor, and again vulnerability. um, so I think all that is part of it. um, Speaking just about like myself, I also grew up until I was early 20s believing that I would not be a valuable partner for anyone. Um, Society or our media does a terrible job of portraying disabled people as worthy partners in romantic relationships. And so over the years of my youth, I internalized that idea and really began to believe that I would be nothing but a burden to a woman someday. And so I didn't pursue it in any meaningful way. Like there were probably, looking back, people in my life earlier on that I could have, pursued a relationship with, but didn't out of just a complete belief that it would be nothing but rejection. Uh, it wasn't until I met more disabled people in my earlier 20s who were in relationships that I realized, oh, hey, I'm never gonna find love if I don't put myself out there and try. Like you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So I think that would probably be my advice. Is like if you're feeling like it's impossible or that you're unworthy, I get that. That is not true though. Like it's just an unfortunate side effect of the media that we consume. So put yourself out there, and there will probably be rejection. I've had failed relationships, but like it is possible, and that is all that matters. Everyone that dates has rejection at times, but you got to put yourself out there, and yeah, that would be my advice.
After reading your books, I also see like how Hannah fell in love with you because you're so vulnerable in there, and you're a deep soul, Shane. And you hear it in your words in your book, and you're a really great author. And so I think that that's something that people in your books can connect very easily with you that way too. I'm sure that's how she, from watching your documentary, how she connected with you so easily at first. But what's been the most powerful thing that Hannah has done to support you um, through these first 5 years of marriage?
Yeah, great question. Oh boy, I could go on and on. I didn't. I was speaking before about my worries about being a burden to the people around me. I've lived with that worry my whole life, and I call it my burden complex.
Hmm.
Um, Hannah has been instrumental in helping me improve or get over my burden complex. Um, Understand that it is not reality and that I don't need to walk on eggshells around people, especially her, when I need assistance with things. That came from like relentless reassuring from her when I would constantly apologize for things that like I needed help with, um, or experiences where we were doing some adventure or activity and something would go wrong, and I would just profusely blame my disability for it, and I had to step in and remind me with love and compassion that like it's not because of my disability, and that she wasn't feeling burdened and things like that. So it was really a consistent effort on Hannah's part to like remind me that I'm not a burden. And slowly over years of talking about it together, I've been able to move to a more healthy understanding of my care and my disability. So I really owe that to her for that relentless reassurance.
That's a huge deal when you felt like that you said 20 years of your life feeling like that. That's a huge
Yeah,
thing to change. No
yeah,
wonder it took a long time to change. So moving into Squirmy and Grubs.
Mhm.
Why are you called Squirmy and Grubs? That was the number one question. I was like, I have to ask, why are they called Squirmy and Grubs?
So, Squirmy and Grubs is the name of Hannah and my YouTube channel, just for people who are unaware. And we've been running that YouTube channel for 6 years now. Um, and it is about our relationship and our travels and our love story. And the name that we gave the channel is indicative of how little we expected anyone to ever watch. Uh, so when we began, we never fathomed that we would have almost 2 million people following our
It's
channel.
crazy.
So we used our pet names that we gave each other very, very early on in our relationship, like the cute little private nicknames that you have with your partner as a joke. Um, Hannah calls me Drubs, has always called me Drubs because I have very sweaty, grubby hands all the time. I just like have sweaty palms. Um, so she, used to say my hands are grubby, and then that turned into Drubs. I have always called her Squirmy because while she sleeps in bed at night, she moves constantly, just like squirms around, and it's really like I lay awake the whole night because I'm just like slowly bouncing as she spins around in bed. So I tell her Squirmy because of that, and yeah, those are a little embarrassing nicknames, and now millions of people know them about us.
Millions. It's funny, you guys actually have like a language that are words that people would never know, and you guys can go back and forth. I've watched some of your videos where like you she'll hold up a description of a word and you'll
Yeah.
be like, oh, it's this.
Uh-huh.
And it's like this baby talk, but it's the whole developed language that you've created.
Yeah, it was interesting making the video that you're referencing. Um, it was a trend going around online where couples analyze like words that they have in their relationship that they've made up over the years. And when we had the idea to do it, we thought, oh, like we probably don't have very many. But the more we did it, we were like, oh my god, we speak in like almost a made up language these days. And I love that. I love seeing all the couples that made that video trend. Just like knowing that couples and that we have all these little inside jokes that develop over the course of a relationship. It's fun.
You've been together for 10 years now?
We know, so we will have known each other for 9 years. Um, in March. Uh, but we began dating like 2 months into our knowing each other. So we're coming up on our 9 years of being in a relationship. Yeah.
It's a long time. So you guys share so much. Obviously, it seems like nothing's off limits, like literally nothing. One thing that I thought was really brave and bold was when you guys shared a situation of how do you use a toilet when there's no toilet seat that's good for you? This is like at an airport.
Yeah.
And but things like that. And that's things like people would never think about that. But by sharing it, it puts it into light and people go, oh my gosh, I never thought that someone would need that. And so it makes them think more about it and think like, yeah, we need those adult changing tables and adult
Yeah.
different types of seats. And that was really bold to share those kind of things.
Thank you. Um, yeah, I think so much of the advocacy that we do is simply having bad experiences out in the world with accessibility or a
Yeah.
lack of accessibility, and then making a video about it to make people aware that a problem exists. Um, you can't. solve a problem until enough people are aware that it's a problem and that they care that something needs to be done about it. And so Hannah and I are fortunate in that, like, when we have difficult experiences of inaccessibility, we as people process it in kind of a lighthearted, like funny way. Like we make fun of it and laugh about it, so that we don't cry about it. Um,
Yeah.
and that puts us in a really good position to then make a lighthearted but serious video about the problem, because we're not like devastated. We're simply recounting a bad but ultimately funny experience and then helping people get fired up about an issue. So that's why there's lots of
Absolutely.
videos about how I use the bathroom.
And why we watch them.
Yep.
Why we watch them. So what do you think one of the most important messages is that you hope to convey through like your books and sharing all these things?
Probably one of the most important messages that we share is that a relationship that involves disability can be just as incredible and beautiful and supportive and fair and adventurous, all the adjectives, um, as any other non-disabled relationship. There's so much stigma that a disabled partner can't contribute equally to your relationship, that Hannah must be sacrificing so much to be my wife, that our life must be sad and lonely and boring. None of that is true for us or so many of the couples that we've had the opportunity to get to know over the years. Um, and we hope that the more people watch our videos and read our work, that they'll see that, yeah, like, I have to go to the bathroom in weird ways at times. And yeah, sometimes we go on a date and it's not accessible, and that's a bummer. But like any good relationship, we work through that together. We figure it out. We have fun, and you know, we both feel that we are incredibly lucky to have the other as a partner.
Mm,
And I hope that people realize that that can be true for all disabled partners.
yeah. So like you guys are huge encouragers for people in your community for sure, and inspire people to think outside the box. So when you think about that, who inspires you?
That's a great question. Um, I think my family, my mom and dad, and my brother, growing up with them, uh, they instilled in me so much of the humor that I use today to like process life. Um, I grew up in a very funny and like ruthless family. When anyone in the family had problems or challenges, whatever, our way of handling it was like laughing about it and finding ways to cheer up that person by making fun of them. Um,
How
we're very
uplifting. How
yeah,
uplifting.
yep. But it was all done with love. That was our kind of love language to use. I don't know if I can steal that phrase, but we made each other laugh as a sign of like love and vulnerability and support, and that really helped me throughout my adult life in dealing with difficult moments. Um, and having them in my life today to vent to and know that while they will be supportive, I'll also get put in my place with a great joke or sarcastic reply. So um, yeah, my family certainly inspires me.
So one thing that I read in one of your books was that you went through a skater phase.
Uh,
And
yes.
I just think it's hysterical that like you like embodied everything of a skater except for using a skateboard. And I'm like, your brother had to just tear you to shreds about that phase of your life of like, dude, you can't be a skater. And you're like, no, I'm going to be a skater.
Yeah. So going through it at the time, he was the actual skater. Um, and, we were best friends early up. So, like, whenever he would go to the skate park, I was always there, telling him tricks to do that he couldn't do. Um, and uh, it was great. Like, we both went through the skater phase together, and all of our friends were close, which was awesome. Looking back on it now, he does not let me forget how cringy, that was for both of us. We had our hair grown out real long, and we had like all these aspirations that like skateboarding was going to be our livelihood forever. That we were going to find ways to make money on it. Yeah, uh, and like just some of my outfits that I would wear back then with like the big skater shoes and the baggy pants, and I thought I was a little like badass, but
Hey,
yeah.
hey, it's working for you. It's working for you then. Uh, so let's talk about travel.
Yes.
So, since we are with Wheel the World, let's talk
Yeah.
about flying. That's another thing that you really share a lot is how flying is really difficult for you for positioning and for wheelchair safety and like, holy crap,
Hmm.
is my chair going to make it, not make it? Um, how do you manage that?
Yeah. So for all wheelchair users, flying can be a terrifying prospect because right now wheelchairs are required to be stored in the underbelly of the plane with the luggage, at least bigger wheelchairs like mine. And inevitably, wheelchairs are damaged or completely destroyed, which, as you might imagine, as someone who relies on my wheelchair to do anything, that can be a nightmare of a scenario. Arriving somewhere and finding out that my $100,000 wheelchair doesn't work and that I am now, stuck. Um, so that's like part one. Part two is that because I'm not allowed to remain in my wheelchair, I have to be lifted onto a normal airline seat, and I can't sit in a normal airline seat. In my chair now, I'm wearing shoulder straps to hold me up. I have a like a seat that I sit on that is shaped to my body. I have supports all over, a headrest to hold my head up. An airline seat has none of that. And so if you sat me in an airline seat and put the seatbelt on, I'd be on the floor in 3 seconds. Um, so to deal with that, we didn't invent, but we got a child's car seat, which thankfully I'm pretty small, and we
How much do you weigh?
retrofitted it with straps and supports. Um, sorry, is it fine?
I said, how much do you weigh?
Oh, I weigh about 65 pounds,
Mhm.
um, dripping wet, so not very heavy. Uh, But we got this car seat and retrofitted it with the supports to hold me up. And now we travel with that everywhere we go. So Hannah will put that car seat on the plane first and then carry me on and strap me into that. It is a very difficult and time consuming and uncomfortable process. Like it doesn't fit me that well. I'm not that small. Um, so like flying is a very uncomfortable and dehumanizing process, just like getting me on the plane. And then to handle my wheelchair, we do what most wheelchair users that fly do. We take off everything that can be removed so that it doesn't break off. We uh, leave instructions on the chair about how to push it manually, disconnect the power, all that, wrap it in bubble wrap. And yeah, it gets broken here and there. Um, it's kind of a right now there is no perfect solution. Um,
Hmm.
it's really if you want to fly, you have to take that gamble and prepare as best you can and hope for the best.
Yeah. You've had some good trips though, where you've had to fly and it's worked. Um, so what do you say to people that are hesitant to travel?
I would say if you are in a position to take that risk of possible hiccups along the way, travel is for me and Hannah by far the greatest joy in life. Um,
Mm,
Getting to experience new places and new cultures and food, new people is just like the coolest thing about life. And I believe um, that the risk is worth it. We have problems with my chair and sitting on the plane here and there, but we've had trips with no issues as well. Um, and we've been able to go, all over Europe and to Mexico with Wheel the World, which was incredible. Um, yeah, I think with proper planning and research, um, it is very possible, and you can avoid most of the catastrophes that could occur. Um, and it's worth it. I believe it's worth it.
So you guys have your best friends, Cole and Charisma, that you
Uh-huh.
travel with, and those
Yes.
trips look like so much fun.
Yeah. So Paul and Charisma are another interabled couple of content creators. Um, Paul has a spinal cord injury, and his wife, Charisma, is non disabled. And we met and became friends with them a few years ago. Now we all live in Los Angeles together. And we've traveled all over with them, all across the US. We went to Mexico to Cancun with them. Um, and it's really refreshing traveling with other disabled people because uh, they get it. Like they know we need to look for the accessible bathroom. We might not be able to go on every excursion if it isn't accessible. And they have like the right mindset for traveling with a disability. That there will be hiccups along the way, but you have to make the most of it. Yeah, it's been great, and we love traveling with them.
In your book, it said that when you were younger and you went to camps with kids in the like MDA community, you were like, "Oh no, I am not one of these people. This is not my
Yeah.
camp," and really didn't embrace that part of the disability community until your 20s. It sounds like.
Yep. Yeah, I not only regret that chapter, um, I was very young when I wrote it, but I regret that period of my life where I felt that way. I so resisted the disability community because I was worried about how that label would cause me to be treated by strangers. Um, Rather than focusing on the fact that maybe strangers shouldn't treat me badly if I'm labeled as a disabled person. And so, because of that, I pushed away from the disabled community and missed out on years of what should have been, friendships and relationships and knowledge and companionship. Um, Today, I am so grateful for the disabled community. I learned so much from them. I derive so much like pride from being a part of this community. Um, and I just wish that younger Shane would have realized that like the messages society was telling me about being disabled were not true. Um, as it led me to minimize my disabled identity for a long time. But such is life, and growing
We all
up
move
and
on.
learning about yourself.
Did you have any role models with disabilities when you were growing up?
Not really, no. Um, and I think that was probably both because there are not a whole lot of disabled people in the media. It's getting better. Um, but back then when I was a kid, like, there was only one or two disabled people that I'd ever heard of in like, popular media. And the other part of it was that I had wanted nothing to do with that. And so I didn't, learn more about disabled people. I didn't seek out disabled role models. Um, and again, that was stupid of me. I understand why I did it, but like, I wish it hadn't done that way.
Yeah. It's just interesting how, like, Hannah, from what she has said, is such a shy person by nature. And you were someone that has kind of, you know, shunned your disability for so many years. And now both of you are having this huge life of being content creators and having to be out there and putting your lives for everyone to see, your sex, your bathroom, your everything for people to see. And you're making such a difference to others. And I feel like that's one of these kind of things now, like you have no idea how the rippling effects of what you and Hannah are doing are really affecting other people's lives. That, I mean, obviously you don't know those 2 million people that are following you, but it's not just the people that are following you with a disability. It's the people that are following you that are interested. And all of a sudden makes them go, wow, I never thought about that. I
Yeah.
never thought that someone with that disability would marry such a hot wife. Like, it's those kind of things that it's really changing things. And I think that's so awesome that you've embraced it.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, life has been an interesting journey, from my acceptance of my disability and having to embrace it, which I give all the credit to other disabled advocates who helped me wake up when I was in my early 20s and realize that like I was being an ableist to myself and others, um, to becoming YouTubers with like a prominence online. Hannah and I never thought we'd be in the public eye the way we are now, and it's certainly been a journey being that this open with the world. Um, but yeah, we've loved it. It's weird. It's super weird to say that like 2 million people know my intimacy life. Um, but I like it. I enjoy it. I feel grateful that I can use my experiences to help people, and make them laugh.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about laughing at my nightmare. Speaking of laughing, because I think this is something really important you do that I want people to know about, and also
Yeah,
where they could donate to if they wanted to donate.
I appreciate that. So, Laughing at My Nightmare is the nonprofit organization that I co founded with my cousin Sarah back in 2012 while we were in college. And today, um, we have two main programs. We have an equipment renting program where we provide adaptive and medical equipment to disabled people who apply to us for items that they need to thrive. Everything from communication devices to uh, technology that's accessible to vehicles that are accessible, elevators, wheelchairs, you name it. Um, we've given a little over $1 million in assistance over the past few years, which we are so grateful for, thanks to our supporters. And then our other main program is a new program that we launched this past year, where we are providing full ride academic scholarships to disabled people pursuing higher education. We awarded our first full ride this year, um, a 4-year scholarship for a young student getting her law degree at Yale, and she lives with SMA like me, and so and then we gave one other partial scholarship this year. Um, so we just want to like do everything we can to make life more equitable and comfortable and productive and healthy um, for the disabled community. So, if that is something that you, listening, can get behind, you can visit laughingatmynightmare.com, and there's a Get Involved tab that you can donate or get involved in other ways. We would love your support. Thank you.
Absolutely. We definitely want to share that with our community. The other thing I want you to talk just a little bit more about is the book. So the book comes out the middle of January.
Yep, January 14th.
Okay. And you just highlight different couples. Tell us just a little bit more about the book.
Yep, so again, the title is Interabled Love Stories, and it is available right now for pre order pretty much everywhere books are sold. Um, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, all the big names. And it's a really cool book because we not only are telling the love stories um, of a 20, 30 other interracial couples from all walks of life, all types of relationships, all types of disabilities, sharing their love story and how they met, and adventures and funny things. But there are also probably a third of the book is stories never told before from my relationship with Hannah, our relationship together, um, including a deep dive on our IVF journey and details that we've never shared before. So yeah, if you're a fan of our love story and our YouTube channel, there's a lot there that we've never shared before. But then there's also all these other beautiful couples that you're gonna fall in love with.
I love it. We will definitely share the links for both of those. But
Thank you.
I think it's the attention that you guys are giving to couples with disabilities is incredible. And I think that even the attention that you guys are doing for advocacy, like how you got to go to Washington, D.C.
Mhm.
and and rights on flights and really being very vocal about
Yeah,
accessibility. It that's what's going to change things.
I hope. I mean, I think, like I said, we're very grateful to be in a position where we can use our our platform to fight for accessibility and improve, um, the landscape of accessibility rights in the U.S. and around the world. Um, but I also would encourage if there are people listening who have thought about sharing their story, whether that's a blog or a Instagram page or a YouTube channel or a podcast. We needed so many more disabled voices out there, so that people, the general public, realize that we are not this tiny, insignificant little minority. We are everywhere, and we take up every space of life. um, and our needs and our our rights are just as important as any other. So share your story if you're interested. We need more people out there sharing their lives.
Absolutely. So, well, thank you so much for having a chat with me today. We're excited to support what you're doing. It's what you're doing is super important, and it's not just a content creator that's just showing pictures of the beautiful things of life. And that's why I respect you so much. Of what you and Hannah are doing is you're showing all your life, and that's it. It's going to make such a difference for people, for their just their awareness, and for them to actually go, okay, I get it now,
Yeah.
you know. And so thank you. But before you go, I always do a popcorn round of questions at the end because everybody wants to know the detail of Shane,
Oh
right?
boy. Popcorn
I
time. I'm
mean, come
ready.
on. We know he was a skater in his heart, but we also want to know other things about you.
I'm
So
ready.
let's go. Uh, Number one, most important thing to pack on a trip.
Snacks. Oh, did it freeze?
Yeah, what's the most important thing to pack on a trip?
Oh, sorry, I answered. I think it may have frozen. Do you want to say it again and then I'll answer again?
What is the most important thing to pack on a trip?
Snacks.
Favorite destination?
Mobile, Alabama.
Okay.
I'm
Last
serious. It's
good
a hidden gem. It's an incredible little city, and they have such good food and such good their vibe, like their music. It's incredible. I love Mobile.
That's shocking, but I love it too. Great shrimp. Okay, last good book you read.
Ooh, I love to read. It's one of my favorite hobbies. And this year, now I'm drawing a blank. Unbroken, which is the story of an Olympic sprinter who was fighting in World War II for the US, and his plane went down over the Pacific Ocean, and he was captured by Japanese forces and held as a prisoner of war for a long time. It's an incredible story of resilience and strength. And I don't normally love nonfiction, um, but this is one that I recently read and has stuck with me for a long time. So it's called Unbroken.
I read that too, and it's an incredible story. Like,
Yeah.
unbelievable. Okay, back to the list. Best snack to take on an airplane. Since you're such a snacker, what's your best snack to take on an airplane?
Ooh, I would have to go with. Oh man, I'm gonna say I love airplane food. By the way, um, people make jokes about airplane food, but if I'm ever on a flight that offers a meal, I get actually excited about picking my meal and enjoying that. Um, but if I'm bringing a snack, I am gonna say miniature brownie bites with a glass of white wine because there's nothing better than having a glass of wine on an airplane. That's a
White
very
wine and brownie bites.
yeah. I don't
Very
know if they go
specific.
together. Yeah,
They don't. I think you need red wine with brownie bites. I'm just saying
yeah.
that's my pairing for you. Try
But I
that.
like Chardonnay. I don't know. I think they go together. It's okay.
Okay. What is Hannah's biggest pet peeve that you do?
I have this terrible problem where I need physical assistance with like picking up a cup to take a sip from it. So very often, almost all the time, I will say to Hannah, "Can I please have a sip of my white wine?" And she will reach for the cup and begin bringing it to my mouth. And the idea for a conversation will strike me at that moment. And I begin talking before the cup gets to my mouth. And then her hand is just hovering there while I speak. And 1,000 times. she's been like, Shane, have your sip and then begin talking. So I think that's her biggest pet peeve.
Do you have a system? This is unrelated. Do you have a system though where you have a straw for wine and beer?
I do, yeah. So when I am like working on my laptop or watching, Netflix or something, my it's super unsafe. But I have, a cup with a straw in it with whatever beverage I'm having. I can't quite reach it, so I prop the cup up on this little Tupperware container on top of my laptop. It's super wobbly, and someday I'm going to spill all over my laptop, but that hasn't happened yet, so I'm going to keep doing it.
Got to do what you got to do, man.
There you go.
Okay, favorite band.
Oh man, it's got to be my all-time favorite, which most people listening probably will never have heard of. Um, but they're a little. Well, I think they're not together now, but it's so sad. Their name was Circa Survive, and they were a hardcore kind of. Hannah calls it screamo. It's more nuanced than that. Um, but I fell in love with them in my teenage theater phase, and to this day, I love listening to their music. But I love all types of music. When I write, I listen to jazz. Um, I love music and appreciate all styles.
I don't think anyone in the history of the world has used the word nuance and screamo music in the same sentence. No
Well,
way.
it is. There is more to it than
It's
just
the
screaming.
nuance. Okay, a mountain or beach vacation.
Beach.
Must have beer in the fridge.
Oh, New Belgium makes a Belgian style triple. I don't know how to say it. It's a very strong beer, and that is what I always have in my fridge.
Love it. Movie you have seen the most.
Ooh, probably Elf, the Christmas movie. I have a love of Will Ferrell, and I watch that movie too much every holiday season. Uh-huh.
Okay, I'm going to quiz you on it. What are his four favorite food groups?
Oh shit! I also have a terrible memory, so
Candy,
candy,
candy
candy,
canes.
candy corn,
Yes.
and
And
syrup.
yes, syrup.
I got
Exactly.
most of
I love
it.
that movie too. Okay, finally, dream trip. Expenses no cost. Like not on
Okay,
anything you want.
Hannah and I have always had the mutual dream of going to some crystal clear water location where like you can see for miles underwater, clear blue water, and staying in an overwater bungalow where like the floor is see through, or you can walk right out and get right in the ocean. Um, but an overwater bungalow in a tropical clear water location would be my dream.
Okay. I'm sure Wheel of the World will find that for you somewhere,
I
Tahiti,
gotta, yeah, I
Bahamas,
gotta.
something. That's got to be on your list. 'Cause like 10-year anniversary is coming up of knowing Hannah.
It is. Yep. So I gotta get cracking because I'm sure the flights to wherever that is are gonna be a little bit of figuring out. But
Just a little bit. Well, thank you, Shane, for being on and chatting with us about what's going on in your life and your book coming up. And we just appreciate what you're doing.
I appreciate it so much. Thank you, Joy. Thank you, Real the World. I, I don't want to be an advertisement here, but Real the World has been so helpful in the experiences that we've had with them, and they make traveling so much more fun and easier. So thank you to Real the World, and thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
You're so welcome. We'll see everyone next time on Travel Talk with Joy. Have a great day.